You're tuned into 9 to 5 Work Rebels with your host, Ebony Gale.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gems in Comms series special brought to you by 9 to 5 Work Rebels podcast in association with Hanson Search, the award-winning international exec search consultancy firm. Now, I am Ebony Gale, your host for today, and today I'm super excited to be speaking with Jessica Hope, who is the founder of Wimbart PR, which is an independent PR agency specializing in Africa and emerging markets. Jessica, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Ebony, thank you very much for having me.
You are most welcome. So just to give you a bit of an idea about this podcast, we are here to give you your flowers. People of color working in the industry, doing great things like yourself. So a kudos to you and giving you your flowers to say well done for carving out a wonderful career in this industry. But also to obviously delve into your experience and your lived experience of working in the industry as well. So a big thank you again. So to start off with, I'd like you to tell us about yourself and what exactly you do.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a PR company called Wimbart, and we specialize in the African tech space. The company has been going since probably as a company for about just under 7 years. I actually launched the company when I was I launched as a freelancer when I was 7 months pregnant, 8 months pregnant. Wow. And I thought, hey, why don't I start my own business? But before that, I was global head of communications at Irocco, which is a Nollywood platform. And I spent the last 3.5 years basically traveling, across Africa, spent a lot of time in New York, kind of working with kind of the entertainment space, but also the tech space, building out a network and kind of carving quite an interesting niche, actually, in terms of like working with the first like big company to raise like really serious international investment, big tech company that raised international investment in Africa. And the CEO and the founder was actually a friend of mine from university, and he suggested that I set up my own PR company. And I was like, wow, are you firing me? He was like, no, it's not like I want you to leave, but you'll reach a glass ceiling at Irocco. And also there is a massive market, lots of people were asking him to subcontract me to do their work. So he actually saw the business. He saw the business model before I did.
Brilliant.
So I left Irocco, and then Irocco was my first client, started as a freelancer, got another client, and then it grew from there. Yeah. And I think since then, I've probably worked with over 100 different startups and scale and growth companies in that time as well. So it's been
amazing.
Busy.
Yeah, definitely busy. And I do like the startup space. I can't lie, I think it's really interesting, exciting, and not a nice way for you to get in there. I mean, your own client is saying, well, look, set up your own stuff and I've got business send your way, essentially. So that's a great way to start. Brilliant.
I think it was an easy way and probably a lazy way to start a business as well, actually, when you've got an entrepreneur kind of pushing you in that direction as well.
That's brilliant.
And he was basically wanting me to like formalize what I was already doing in terms of helping others out, and knew the startup space really well. So I was so lucky that he was like my number one kind of ally. And
amazing. Really I love that. I think that's such a lovely story, and you don't hear things like that very often. Usually, you're working hard trying to stay out. You've got someone who said, hey, go and do it. And I love that you went and did it, because you could have been like, oh, no, it's not for me. It's just too much. It could have scared you, but you embraced it. So well done to you. So have you always wanted to work in communications?
Not always. Like a lot of PR people, I started off wanting to be a journalist. Straight after I left university, I had done work experience, a lot of magazines at uni. And then I did my work experience at the BBC in Manchester as well. So I had really wanted to be a journalist. And I actually worked on a couple of magazines, like lifestyle magazines, straight after uni as well. But it didn't really work out that well. Needed to pay the mortgage on my flat. Yeah. So kind of randomly fell into PR, did a bit of work experience, applied for a job. And then interestingly, the PR agency I was working at, quite early on when I was an account executive, I'd also applied to work for sort of a B2B publishing company. And even though that was like what I wanted to do, I had always wanted to be a writer. The PR company kind of persuaded me to stay when I told them I'd been offered another job at a publishing house. And it's funny because I think that's kind of like, that's really what set me on the PR journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
I committed to it then. Yeah. Rather than kind of go down the publishing route, which is funnily enough what I'd always wanted to do. But there were so many bits about PR that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the writing. I kind of enjoyed the selling in. I liked the research. there's a lot of crossover between the two. So yeah, I guess from my early 20s, I knew that this was going to be what I was going to sort of stay in.
Oh, cool. Well, that's interesting. So you kind of fell into it and thought, okay, I'm happy here. I'm liking this. So it didn't, also from that perspective, you wasn't necessarily, because the question is what attracted you to the industry? So your attraction was really the writing, the journalistic side, was it? Would that be it? Yeah.
I think the writing, and I think the PR people tend to be quite extrovert. A lot of them are. I had like amazing team. I really liked my boss at the time. I just like the kind of personalities as well.
Yeah.
I think PR actually attracts some quite interesting people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there was a mix of things that kind of attracted me and like forced me to stay in this space.
Oh, brilliant. Lovely. I love that. Okay, moving slightly into a bit of your lived experiences. So one of the questions I always ask my guests is, when did you become aware of your ethnicity? Now, for others, this may sound like a strange question, but it's really not. It's, we know we're born in the skin we're in. I know that I come from a black family. I have brown skin. Right, great. Right, but going to school, secondary school, as an 11-year-old, being the first year going to secondary school, I remember hearing these rumors about these racist white boys that would be targeting any black or brown person called Chelsea Smilers, and then they would, carve the smile in your face with, with a blade and stuff like that. So really horrific. I remember hearing that going to secondary school, and that really made me become quite aware of the fact that I am different. Obviously, I always knew it, but in the kind of outside world, so to speak. Did you have any kind of experiences that you can share with us?
I wouldn't say as extreme or probably traumatic as that. As you can say, I'm really light skinned because I'm mixed race, white Guyanese.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there wouldn't have been anything like that would have sort of really marked it out. But when my parents divorced when I was 4, my mother moved back to Devon. So I actually spent most of my time in Devon, which is like super white.
Yes.
And I remember when my dad came to visit, especially my secondary school, actually, it was quite a shock to the people that my dad was black.
Okay.
Because there was like in a school of 2,500 people, there was maybe like 3 black kids.
Right.
In fact, one of the women, black women in my school, she now is like a DJ on Radio 6, which is amazing.
Amazing. Love that.
But yeah, so I wasn't ever kind of, I was personally quite aware of it because I spent so much time in Devon where there was no real opportunity to embrace any kind of like part of my culture. Yeah. And then the rest of the year, like the holidays, I would come and be in like Streatham and Brixton, and then I was like very aware that I was
very aware.
I was the light-skinned member of my family as well, so I would go and spend time with like my Guyanese cousins or my Guyanese aunties, and they would have a party, and I would be like the lighter skinned person there. by a lot, but they didn't care. No one ever made a deal of it as well. So I think that I was kind of aware of my ethnicity. My dad was also a really quite a well-known policeman, and he actually had set up the Black Police Association in the Met. And years before that, he'd actually written a dissertation about institutional racism in the police force. Which is funny. He wrote the dissertation in 1986, and they're still talking about institutional racism in the police now. To this day, and he had kind of pioneered Black policing. He'd been a mentor to lots of Black police officers. He was one of the, I think he was, him and his friend were like number 11 and 12 Black police officers in the police ever.
Wow.
So I was really aware of my ethnicity through a lot of my dad's work and his network and his people as well. And I think, funnily enough, I was like, we were always surrounded by like successful and elite Black people. And I love that for me now as well. It's not like necessarily an underdog story. It's very much like now we just knew loads of amazing, talented, interesting,
wonderful,
interesting like Black people who were excelling in all walks of life as well. So I think, again, like mostly a positive experience, but I also think that, to be honest, because I am so light skinned, a lot of people would not assume that I'm have any like that I'm Black.
Yeah, I hear that.
Or mixed race, I should say.
Yeah, I hear that. Interesting though, really interesting. So I suppose going on that, because of the fact that you are lighter, it's going to be interesting for this next question, which is, have you ever felt like your race or ethnicity has held you back in your career?
No, not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge at all. So I don't think that, it would be odd for me to be the recipient of any like overt racism. I have been, because people just wouldn't assume and they wouldn't say anything as well. And I'm quite a shouty kind of person as well. So I would like shout back. So people probably wouldn't say or do anything.
Wouldn't say anything.
And interestingly, I have since, what year are we in now? Probably since 2010, 2011, maybe 12. I've worked in the predominantly Black environments as well.
Yeah.
So for the last 10 or 11 years, I've worked in predominantly Black environments.
So you wouldn't be dealing with that anyway. Cool.
I mean, well, it's like an opposite. It's in an opposite bubble,
side,
right?
for you, right? Yeah, absolutely, opposite. Definitely, so opposite.
It's a different. It's a different makeup than other people. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, actually, because then you all of a sudden you kind of forget that there are other kind of issues going on. But like my team and I, we've been like insulated in like a hyper like multicultural work environments for so long now, that for me, I consider it the norm.
Which is a wonderful thing. It's wonderful. Especially talking to everyone that I've interviewed, you know, it's the first I'm hearing this type of response, which is amazing, because you are working literally in more with people who are of colour for the most part. So you're not necessarily going to have that issue, which is great. Wonderful. Because my next question was more about, as you know, have you experienced or witnessed racism in the workplace? And if so, how was it handled?
I think in some respects, in some ways, I think especially in PR, it's quite odd. I don't know. I've managed to remove myself, I think, from any specific environments that I would be the recipient of it or have perceived it as well. And it's more like what we're doing at Wimbart is we're kind of creating a safe space where people kind of can come and, you know, you're not just the Black person who works in PR. You can be the Ghanaian, you can be the Jamaican, you can be the Guyanese, you can be the Kenyan, you can be South African, you know, and you kind of express and enjoy your culture. And, you know, you're not the token Black person, right? You are literally your ethnicity, and you can live it, breathe it, sleep it, do whatever. Obviously, you know, keeping an open mind to other people. So even funnily enough, this week, we have a woman that works for us, and she started like 3 months ago, and she's Indian, and she's like organizing a Diwali like food fest or something next week as well. So it's very inclusive and open, and it's there to, you know, there to celebrate, and there to like, we all want to learn about, you know, new members of the team's cultures as well, in a really unforced way. You know, if she doesn't want to go and do like organize a Diwali thing in the office, she doesn't have to, but she wants to, and she's kind of gathered momentum as well. So I don't think I've been in this environment for so long. I find it quite surprising when
you hear other stories.
Not surprising, actually. So here's one of the things. Someone on my team, you know, when all the Black Lives Matters activity was like kicking off a couple of years ago, and we had a lot of PR agencies were like really like doing a lot of social media activity, but we know that there are a lot of
black squares,
and they're the culprits for a lot of pain and anguish and microaggressions for a lot of like Black or Asian or ethnic minority people in the PR space. So as a team, we kind of had to have a think about, how do we respond? Like, we can't say we're going to work with more, we're going to try and hire more Black people, because you already do, right? Do that. We're not going to necessarily look for more Black vendors, for example, because we try where possible to like bring on board Black vendors as well. And then someone on my team kind of said that she'd been reading she was in some other WhatsApp groups, and she was hearing some of the stories from other people in the sector. And she was like, wow, they're faced with racism all day, every day. And like, people would say things about the food that they brought into the office, or make funny comments about their hair, or their how they speak and things like that. And she said that she almost had what was the word, like survivor's guilt almost, because she was like, we've managed to remove all of this.
And she
that's
amazing
for other people, and almost a bit guilty.
It is. I mean, the fact is that you're creating a safe space for people, and I think that's amazing, and that's reflected in that story that you just shared. Because there's a lot of people who are dealing with the complete opposite. So, but that's great. At least there is, you know, your example of a safe space where, you know, it's culturally inclusive and you've got happy people. So I think that's wonderful. You know, it's sad for everybody else that's going through it, but it does make a difference, because actually highlighting those stories, the fact that that person shared that story in a WhatsApp group, creates awareness, and hopefully she will take herself to an agency where she feels a bit more appreciated. You know, it's difficult. difficult.
I think that's really important. Funnily enough, interestingly, because we've created the safe space, the workplace isn't like an environment where we've kind of detected racism, but actually on a couple of occasions, some of our clients, they will listen to me, but they treat some of the Black women on my team like it's been noticeably difficult and dismissive.
Okay.
And my team knows, like, I write prolific, like, dissertation-esque emails telling people what I think of them if I'm not happy. So we're really lucky. We don't need to work with racists, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If you have a problem with dealing with like senior Black women at Wimbart, you can go elsewhere, because
absolutely.
It's only until 2 weeks ago we had our first like man on our senior team, right? So Wimbart is like not only just run by Black women, but senior Black women as well. So if you have a problem with them, you have a problem with the whole company.
Absolutely.
And we're fortunate that we don't have to take money off racists.
Exactly. And that's wonderful too. I mean, I love that, you're in a position where you can do that. And even if you're working your own, like for me, example, I remember someone said to me when I first set up, and I said I was Ebony Gale Communications, they're like, oh, well, you're not worried because your name, you might work with people who are racist. I'm like, I don't want to work with racist people. This is the point. Like, if you see that my name's Ebony, it means Black, yes, there's your warning sign. If you're a racist, please go the other way. Like,
just
I'm
keep
happy
moving.
with that.
Don't be racist elsewhere.
Exactly. There's other people to be racist with, just not me. It's fine, So I completely get where you're coming from in just forging ahead. I like that. So you basically haven't necessarily experienced it, which is great. And you're not witnessing it because you're in the right, your environments are inclusive. So that's wonderful. Okay, so moving on. Was there ever a time that you wish you spoke up about something, although it doesn't sound like it because you just said you write prolific emails? So it's about self-advocating. So do you feel like there's a time when you wish you spoke up about something, or when you wish you kind of self-advocated? Maybe going back before you started Wimbart PR, maybe.
No, I'm actually like known for being a fighter, and like I wear my heart on the sleeve, and I'll fight either for myself or members of my team. Nothing in particular springs to mind, but I'll always, if I really have a sense of like justice and what's right and what's wrong, not in a naive way. I understand like how the world works, and like not everything can be perfect, and not everyone's going to be best friends all the time. But I think, I'll stand up and I'll fight and I'll shout if I have to. And I think that probably comes probably from seeing what my dad did in terms of like growing the Black Police Association. And all the work that he did, all the advocacy that he did in the police for so many years. One of the biggest barriers, he had, he was criticized by the Black community for joining the police. He was, he had to battle like, there was a lot of like Black police officers who didn't really want there to be a Black Police Association because they didn't want to cause trouble. They wanted to kind of like go under the radar. They didn't want to seem like troublemakers, which I understand as well. Like definitely like no critique at all. But he kind of, kept fighting in a kind of like soft power kind of way, and just, made it an enabling environment. But also put himself front and center when he needed to, when they needed a senior voice, when they needed someone with a certain level of like gravitas to like pull this kind of group together. He was that person as well. And so when I say I'm a shouty person, it's not like I'm literally like screaming and venting all the time. But if I'm not happy, if I don't think something's right, I will definitely say so.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with using your voice.
The good thing about using my voice and using, I guess, a position of power in terms of it's my business. If like someone on my team's not comfortable, I'm not comfortable. We'll make things happen. We'll change things. And as I say, I'm happy to take money off the table if it means we don't have to work with, or anyone on my team has to work under a situation or with people that they don't feel comfortable with.
That's so important. And I love that, because you're showing that you care about the business, but you care about people. And I think that's so important, and something that a lot of PRs, I believe, are missing. They just care about the profit, hence why people kind of just get left to it. So no,
I need to care about the profit a bit more. Otherwise, I'm going to dress like a teenager for the rest of my life.
That made me laugh. Okay, so I wanted to ask you about code switching. Now, I think this is interesting because I feel like, people of color tend to code switch sometimes in the workplace. Now, for your workplace, I would assume everyone kind of brings their authentic selves to work to a degree. So my question was around that. Do you feel like you can leave with your authentic voice in the workplace? And I'm pretty sure you're going to say yes because of the way your work is set up.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like the complete opposite to all of your other guests.
No,
Like,
but I
there's
love it.
nothing
That's what
like
I want.
newsworthy on what I'm saying.
No, there's lots
But
of
no, I think
newsworthiness
like
in what you're saying. You've got an inclusive organisation. I'm like, if I think about it for myself, I'd be like, hey, I'm coming over there.
there is a little bit of code switching, I think. And I guess an example would be almost again like the reverse of everything else. Like, we have lots of Nigerians who work at Wimbart because that's where a lot of our clients are based, like Nigerian clients as well.
Yeah.
And we like, I guess as a feeling, everyone feels comfortable to be themselves. But like one day they're like 3 or 4 of them were speaking like Yoruba to each other, and we're like, nah.
Yeah.
Because it like all of a sudden leaves out other people who don't speak Yoruba as well, but they felt comfortable doing it. But we had to remind them that it is an inclusive company as well, and they weren't doing it they weren't doing it to exclude anyone. It's just like there's 3 or 4 Yoruba speakers.
Yeah.
So I think that. So I don't even know if that's code switching. It's more of a, but we'll have like we'll laugh about certain like funny nuances and different like cultures. And I think because we know it's a safe space, it is like, you can laugh at your own culture, right?
Yeah.
There's ways of like laughing at like certain like peculiarities about your, and it's laughing with other people as well. So there's a way that people can express themselves where it's like, no, it's not racist.
Yeah.
It's like, Jamaicans might do this.
Yeah, it's
or
cultural
like
nuances that we might have,
might do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that works really well. And the code switching as well is interesting because a lot of members of my team, like they can code switch even when speaking with clients.
Yeah.
A lot of our clients in Nigeria, so they can, they might like pepper their conversations with like a bit of pidgin, for example, or, so there is, but not in an enforced way.
Okay.
It's like people can feel comfortable to
bring
I guess, bring their own like linguistic flair, as long as they can make themselves known. But like no one's under pressure to speak the Queen's English.
I hear that.
She was like half German anyway. So
exactly. I was going to say she's basically German. So yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for sharing that. That's really cool, actually. So I wanted to ask you about when you first became aware of the colour bias in the industry. Have you always sort of known about that?
I think so. Until I moved to London and started working at Morocco, I'd worked in PR agencies where I don't think I met my first Black PR person until I came to London.
Oh wow!
I worked at the Natural History Museum, and actually she was in internal comms, but we sat on the same floor and we like bonded on day one. Like we were just like, okay, we see you,
we see
I
each
see
other.
You.
Yeah.
And we're still friends today, and that was like 15 years ago, maybe. And that was the first Black comms person I ever worked with. And then I kind of got involved with the BME PR pros. And I guess I sort of picked up on some of the more people I spoke to, I picked up on some issues.
Yeah.
But again, because I was working at Morocco and I was working for what's essentially an African company, I wasn't faced with it every day. I was just like it. So, and I didn't really actually start even engaging with UK PR until maybe, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
Maybe a bit more. Because it was just, again, in my little bubble, like all my clients are in Africa. The team was still relatively small, but when we had to start, I guess, attracting more UK talent as Wimbart was growing, that's when we started engaging more with UK PR space. And it was very, very clear, that this is like a very like hyper white market.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. So for me, I didn't see it also because I was working in my own little industries. So when I started getting into the networking, I come into more the PRE type events. That's when I started to notice it. And even joining Women in PR as one of their committee members on the board, going to those events and just seeing a sea of white women, I was just like, this is really fascinating, like how white this industry is. So yeah, interesting, very interesting. So what's your thoughts on allyship? What does it mean to you? Like, and do you have like an example of what a good ally is for you?
I think allyship is people who understand the cause and try and like find ways to support you and your company. Like I'm really lucky in the last 2 or 3 years, I've been introduced to a couple of like CEOs in the tech PR space, and they have given their time to help me grow as a person. And like they've scaled big PR agencies, so they're helping me, sort my ideas with different ways of thinking. They are like personal allies to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a bit of a cynic when it comes to the concept of allyship a bit, because a lot of the people who shout about being allies, I don't think they are.
Fair enough. At least you've got your own example of what allyship looks like to you, and you've got those who are helping you. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, I've got, and there's a lot of allyship, even in the, a couple of other people have mentored other people on my team as well. I think allyship is like genuine, like impactful, meaningful support as well.
Yeah.
But I'm also a little conscious of people who literally are trying to paint themselves as like full-time allies as well, which I find really weird.
Yeah, I get that.
So I think, I have thoughts on it. Some are maybe like slightly, I don't know, not controversial, but I've come across like some amazing people, and I'm fortunate, and I think I have lots of allies, and I think people on my team have some amazing allies as well, actually. So shouldn't complain too hard. But I've also seen examples of people acting as allies and kind of doing the exact opposite as well for their own personal gain.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about weeding out those that are actually true allies and not just here just because it's the thing to do or seem to be doing. I get you completely. Okay. So maybe more into kind of you. I want to know sort of what motivates you and inspires you to keep going.
Yeah, good question. I think paying the mortgage. That's like
that's important.
No, it's not just that. Like, I actually love my business. I love my team. I love the work. It's tiring. I think having a business and like there's 21, 22 members of staff at the moment, it's like is very intense. We have like 20 clients at any one time, 3 or 4 project works plus new business. So I find it quite a lot to juggle. But actually, even sometimes when I say, oh, new business, cool, don't really feel like it. 2 minutes in and I start hearing about someone else's business, I'll get all excited and I speak really quickly and I get overexcited because I'm interested in people, I'm interested in business models, I'm interested in stories and what we can do and connecting that. So that motivates me. The people around me motivate me. Like my amazing team are like the biggest motivators, I would say, as well. And I think that what we're building at Wimbart is unique and interesting as well. And I've only in the last kind of couple of years where I've been able to take a step back and go, oh, actually, no, this is quite cool what we're doing. And that's quite a big motivator for me to keep building and growing and scaling the business and pushing myself rather than, the last few years I've had to sort of transition from being a PR person to a business owner and a CEO and like concentrate more on leadership and business building rather than, oh, can I get my client in Bloomberg? So that's what motivates me as well, like my own kind of like personal development.
Okay, well, that's brilliant. I love that. That's really good. And so on your journey so far, what do you say you found the most challenging?
Scaling the business and it's working with people that you care about is quite hard because if someone leaves the company, that can be quite emotional, or if someone's going through a tough time, that can be emotional as well. Knowing when to be like, when are you the boss? When are you like an empathetic boss as well? Like those are some of the things. I think juggling so many different bits of work, and as I alluded to in my last answer, juggling that kind of client work and making sure that the quality of work for clients is still high and amazing, but also then focusing on building the infrastructure and building the business. And Wimbart for ages was just essentially a bunch of like fabulous hustlers, which was great, but then that only works until there's maybe like between 6 to 10 of you, and then all of a sudden you start having to have better processes, better HR, templates, like some proper infrastructure. And I found that challenging because I actually really liked doing the PR and the client work as well.
Of course,
so I've had to take a step back. And so my personal challenge is now being able to make sure I do both, but focus more on the leadership and put even more trust than I do already, but a lot of trust in the client teams to kind of keep executing
absolutely
on their work, so I can create a more enabling environment for them to work, and that they feel the growth and they feel Wimbart scaling as well.
Absolutely, and that is a task in itself, absolutely a challenge in itself, and you seem to be handling it well. So kudos to you, which is great. And so putting on a hat as an employee, because clearly, obviously, you run your own business. But if you thinking about people that you hire, for example, what is it that you want from your employer? You're an employer, so what is it that you try to put out there for your employees, I suppose, in meshing the questions together?
I think there's like, it's a lot of it is culture in terms of like, come to work, be yourself. And unlike sort of general PR culture, it's not, you have to be in the office until 9, 10 o'clock at night. It's not like that. We have a lot of families that work, at Wimbart. So I want people to go home at 5:30 or work flexible hours or do whatever. There isn't that culture of presenteeism and just being seen, 10 hours a day by the boss. Nah.
Yeah.
Like I want people to have good lives and be happy.
Love
so that's an important. That's really important for me. I want people to be able to see that there's a future in what we're doing as well. We've been really unfortunate that we've had some recruiters kind of try and poach members of staff for other PR agencies recently, and they keep saying, "Oh, but you don't want to work in African tech; you want to work with international brands."
Wow.
My argument is there's 54 countries in Africa, and there's plenty of international brands. But I think what I need to do now, as a business builder, is kind of prove that. And so I want employees, current and future employees, to see the momentum, to see where we are as a company, and see the mega opportunities of growth at Wimbart as well.
Absolutely.
So it's not just in terms of the types of clients that we work with, but for them, I want employees to see Wimbart as an employer where we foster personal growth. We promote from within. We've had people go from account exec all the way up to senior account manager. And so those are really important things that I want people to see, that it's a small business, but you have to be quite agile. There's a lot of hustle involved, but there's structure and there's growth opportunities. But in an enabling environment, and not in a toxic, shouty 70 hours a week environment, 60 hours a week environment. I don't think that's a long-term play for people as well. No. So those are some of the main things that I think are really important as an employer.
Brilliant. That's great. You just covered that off as well, because I was going to ask you about what makes a good working environment. And you've kind of put that out, somewhere where that you can actually help your employees to kind of move up. And I think that's so important, and grow within, Personal development is super important as well as your career trajectory. So it's so important that you're looking at both of those and making sure that you're offering that to your employees. Wonderful. Love it. So what does diversity, equity, inclusion look like for you? Because obviously you've got a very diverse team.
I think it's just making sure that there's space for everybody. And I think, we do have white people working at Wimbart as well, and that's important. I think different cultures, different races. I think diversity, interestingly, in terms of we can think of neurodiversity as well, as something that we'll probably think about going forward as well. How can we support neurodiverse candidates as well, should they choose to apply for a role at Wimbart as well. Mm-hmm. Gender, think about gender mix and balance that we have at Wimbart. As I mentioned, we recently welcomed our first man onto the senior team. That felt like diversity. But making sure that we have a gender balance. I think we're still skewed towards more women than men at Wimbart currently at the moment. Although, funnily enough, I think generally in the PR space, it tends to be still more women in the space, but men seem to take up more leadership roles as well. So again, that's somewhere that Wimbart continues to go above and beyond when it comes to having lots of senior Black women at the company.
Brilliant. Okay, so moving into your proudest moments, I want you to tell us about one of your proudest moments. It can be work, it can be personal, and also could you also include a career highlight for us as well?
Tricky one. I'm still wondering whether or not a career highlight is going to come. Maybe, I don't know if that's optimistic or pessimistic of me. I think there was a couple of times when we'd won quite big clients at Wimbart. And there was one that we pursued for a really long time and kept up the relationship. And we'd worked with lots and lots of small clients, early days when there was just three of us. We mostly did project work. And then we pursued this really big African tech company. And they said yes, they needed us to work on a 3-month project. And we've been working with them for 5 years, I think, since then. So we were not only able to win that piece of work, but also maintain this very, very long-term relationship as well.
Brilliant. That's so there's a couple proud moment. That's definitely proud.
Yeah, I think so. And being able to maintain that relationship as well, absolutely. And go on that journey with them is big. I think there's a couple of times, each time when we've moved offices for more space, that's felt like a big highlight as well.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think once we hit sort of 20 people at Wimbart as well, that felt like a big milestone. I wouldn't say a highlight, but I was like, oh, okay,
We've got 20
we're not a teeny
people.
tiny bunch of hustlers anymore.
That's great.
So there's things like that. Weirdly enough, when I got my job, I did a 3-month stint at the Natural History Museum when I was younger. I really loved that. Like, I loved every single day of work. I was so happy to get that job, because I'd always wanted to work in museums. And then I was like, oh, got a job as a press officer at like one of the best museums in the world. So that felt like, at the time, felt like a massive career highlight, and then opened the door to other opportunities as well. Then I went on to be head of press at the Jewish Museum after that. After that stint came about as well. So that, there are, I guess you have, success means different things at different stages in your career as well. Yeah, those are some of the main ones.
Well, that's good. I appreciate you sharing those with us. I think that's nice to have, of course. And then, so more about the industry. So what are your thoughts on how the industry will kind of evolve over the next few years? Because there's so much happening. Do you see DEI dropping off of the totem pole? Because right now it's at the top, and then it kind of, come round in waves. And, AI is also creating differences, and the way that the future of technology is kind of impacting. What do you think will happen to the industry over the next few years?
I don't know, actually. I don't think I'm involved in UK PR enough to be able to sort of give any kind of sensible predictions. I can still see, I think the PR space is still going to grow, because essentially when we see a reduction in media sort of journalists, so it's going to get even harder to secure coverage for clients. That's if you're just talking about day-to-day basic PR in terms of press release, selling and stories, thought leadership. So you're going to need more PRs and more skilled PRs to get coveted coverage. So that'll be one thing. But I think PRs are going to have to continue to evolve as well. So gone are the days where you can just kind of write a press release and then go out for a 3-hour boozy lunch with a journalist. It's going to be the case of, you need to think more strategically, and PRs are going to be evolved even more than they are now. And I know they are already, in terms of strategy, content creation, understanding digital PR as well. So I see that that's going to be quite a big change going forward. But I think, funnily enough, the PR that Wimbart does, it's still kind of, we're kind of working in emerging markets as well, so it's slightly different. And say, for example, we have to be quite nimble, because we contact most of our journalists on WhatsApp. So I think in the UK, a lot of people would love to have like a journalist mobile number, and a journalist is probably no, I don't want to give out my number. Like in Nigeria, Ghana, Togo, Kenya, wherever we work, a lot of it is like WhatsApp, people back and forth as well. So that's I guess that will change a bit as well. But the trouble is, I know that the PR space as well is trying to make strides in improving the mental health of PRs, because obviously it's a stressful job. And actually, I think that all these pings all the time, you're contactable all the time, I actually think is really bad for mental health as well, because you're not really switching off.
Exactly.
So I think that this kind of increased access and connectivity in some ways is easier, because you can kind of make things happen a lot quicker. But then at the same time, what's the kind of benefit in terms of what are the boundaries as well? So for an example, I say to my teams, we work in PR, so sometimes there is a crisis, but also we work with a lot of entrepreneurs who they don't switch off, and that's fine for them. But if they're just sending random WhatsApps on Saturday morning at 11 o'clock in the morning, don't respond unless it's very, very urgent. Because the thing is, it's also then you're kind of drawing yourself into a conversation for the rest of the day. And it's not the client's fault as well. If you respond once, they're like, okay, this person's tuned in, plugged in. So there's going to be back and forth. So we're trying to be quite intentional about our own boundaries as PRs, because we are so accessible. So even when we start a new client, for example, we'll say, of course, we're happy to have a WhatsApp group with a client. It will mostly be between, the hours of 9 till 6, Monday to Friday.
So you're setting the boundaries already. So that's good. That's really, really cool. But I suppose it must be hard for you, because you're doing in the Africa emerging markets. So you've got different time zone differences as well. So are they coming through at different times, or is it not that big a deal?
It's not, the time difference is not bad. So at the moment, we're the same time as Nigeria, for example. So there's only the maximum, there's only 1 hour's difference.
Okay.
I think when the clocks go back. Kenya then fluctuates between 2 to 3 hours. So again, that's not too extreme, really. So you might wake up, for example, and your Kenyan client sent you like 4 WhatsApps because for them it's 8 o'clock. No, for them it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's 6 o'clock for you. But that's just because you're not under pressure to be responding until you come online. And most of the people we work with are also used to time zones as well, so they kind of get it.
Okay, cool, interesting. Oh, nice. So another question for you, which is about key lessons. So what would you say are the key lessons you've learned throughout your career so far?
Wow. I think hard work is really important. I know like a lot of young people talk about burning out these days and they want like a work-life balance, but I think in your early career, you've actually got to put in quite a lot of hard work and quite a lot of slog to actually get to a certain stage as well. So I think you have to be quite committed and go above and beyond the early days to kind of get ahead of the crowd. Not, working 90 hours a week or anything like that, but
no, I get you.
You're not going to be, unless you're particularly talented in something, like you can't be expecting to earn the big bucks if you literally do your 9 to 5 and then you're 25 and you want to be earning 100 grand. Like that's quite difficult.
Absolutely.
So I think hard work goes a really long way, as does attention to detail is really important as well. Learning about boundaries in terms of when to be assertive, but also when to respect other people's boundaries as well. I think the power of network is something that is, you almost can't monetize it. So being present and being in the room is really important. And I think it's going to be difficult for a lot of people who work remotely all the time now, because I wonder how they make these kind of meaningful connections. Now, obviously, there's Twitter, there's lots of social networks.
There's lots,
LinkedIn. But there's also something about someone saying, oh, we met at an event a couple of years ago, or I saw you at this, or we spoke at this as well. And Wimbart literally runs off not just vibes, although hopefully it's good vibes, but Wimbart runs off network. We don't do any proactive new business. It's like, even now I'll get an email from someone, they're like, oh, we met in Cape Town 4 years ago. I'd love to talk about PR. Oh, do you remember that time we were in New York together, or we met at this event in London?
Right.
Being present and the power of the network is like, I have built Wimbart basically from that.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, that's so nice for you to share as well for our listeners. So for the young people, because we did touch on them slightly, what advice would you give the young people of colour in particular that are considering entering the industry?
Yeah, you're saying young people like I'm not one of them, Ebony.
Well, we're both young, okay? That's fine.
Even younger people.
Younger.
So I think it's about a case of, again, finding your network and just getting into companies where you're going to learn a lot, but also keeping your eye out. If you're in a company that, as a person of colour and you're not happy, don't stick it for too long, because I think also what you'll start thinking that this is the norm, and it doesn't have to be as well. Now, I'm not saying that young people should job hop, because even now, sometimes if I look at someone's CV and it's like 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, I'm thinking this is going to be problematic for me, because I don't want to hire someone just for 3 months. Like what's the pattern here? So I think it's important for young people to get in at the early stage, at an early stage of a company. If you don't like everything, that's fine. Like no one likes all of their job all of the time. I don't even like my job all of the time, and it's my company. So I think it's about being realistic, but getting in early, like learning lots, getting a mentor, like being proactive as well in terms of your own company, like in terms of your own like learning as well. But if you think as a person of color, actually this place is like mad racist, I hate it, don't stay there for 5 years, because you will just be worn down.
Absolutely.
So stay there as long as you have to, get the experience that you need, like stand up for yourself if you need to, just like don't take any ridiculousness, but then also keep your eye, especially in the PR industry. There's a lot of jobs at the moment, like tons of jobs. So build your network, get involved in some of the Black networking events, and like there's so many kind of communities now. They do in-person meets, and then there's like WhatsApp groups, and then there's like the BME PR pros, all these different networks as well. And just build your network from that as well, and keep an eye out for the next best thing. But also don't always be thinking that there's always the next best thing, and do too much job hopping as well, because I don't think that because people also want to see consistency as well.
They do. Right, so thank you for that. I'm moving slightly into mindset now. So we're coming to our last few questions, right? So how do you deal with the kind of internal mindset war in terms of how do you manage self-limiting beliefs? Not the easiest. Everyone has these, right? But it's just like everyone has different coping mechanisms. So give it over to you.
I don't think I have imposter syndrome all the time, although I have been prone to it as well.
Okay.
So I think that I have to kind of get over myself as well. Other kind of, for me, challenges that I've had to overcome is like a massive fear of public speaking.
Okay.
I really, really can't stand being on a panel. I find it very difficult to even be interviewed, doing webinars, anything like that.
Honey. Doing absolutely smashing.
I really have to like psych myself up. Like I have to be very much focused in the mood to do it. But also I know that it's part of my job. I am the CEO, I'm the founder, I'm the leader. And so this is the next thing. I have to go out and talk about my company, talk about the industry if I need to. So I guess it's like, I used to say no to stuff and now I say yes because I've forced myself to do it. And I genuinely believe you get better the more hard work you put in something and the practice as well. Like this sounds like old person speak, but basically it is just practice and refining your skill and refining and thinking about afterwards, what could I have done better? Should I have prepared more? Should I have said this? Should I have said that? Should I have spoken a little bit slower? That's always my concern because I speak really, really quickly as well. Yeah. So those, for me, those are the self-limiting things of not pushing myself forward. Or I chose not to, and now I have to at least say yes to stuff as well. Yeah. I still don't do, for example, my team wants us to do more proactive PR about Wimbart, about the company, and I'm like, no, we're just going to focus on the work and let the work speak for itself. Yeah, it can't be like that forever. Sooner or later, I'm now then going to have to get over my own self limitations of preferring to be quite quiet and focusing on the work to being like, no, we're working in a busy marketplace. We need to make sure that our name is front of mind. We need to build our profile for whatever reasons as well. Just like we would say, in PR for a client that we're working with, who's your target audience? Why do you need communications? Yeah, exactly. So I think that's one of the self-limitations that I used to let really bother me. And now I just have to just kind of get over it and be a bit better. But there's nothing scientific about that. It's more like you've just got to do it. You've just got to do it.
Yeah, exactly that. It is that. It's about kind of trying to stop those faults in the track and trying to be like, okay, now, I try and provide evidence for myself as to why I'm not that imposter. Sometimes you have those moments you think, oh, I can't do that. Like speaking, I used to be afraid of speaking. Now I love speaking, like panels. I embrace that.
And you're really good at it as well, conversational.
Well, thank you. I try.
One of the things that I struggle with when I sort of watch webinars and people talk like theoretically and intellectually about PR and all those things, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I don't think I have those deep thoughts about PR, and I'm certainly not structured to think and speak like that. I will just talk with my own experiences and everything else. And I think, well, is it that I don't know anything about PR?
No,
and I'm like, no,
experience is important.
Sense of delivery. Yeah. And I just focus more on actually doing the work rather than weirdly thinking about it or making it hyper intellectual. And there's space for different approaches as well. So that took me a while to kind of, again, get over myself and being like, I have other qualities that others don't, and other people have qualities that I don't have as well.
Exactly.
I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm less good at. And I know areas that I'll push myself that I want to be better in. And there's some things that I think, at my big age, it's probably not going to happen for me now.
Your big age. Excuse me, you're young. Remember, we're young. You're forgetting that part. No. We said we're young earlier. Okay. Well, no, thank you for sharing that. I think that's important as well. In terms of mindset, it's difficult in terms of like taking yourself out of your comfort zone. But I do believe that life begins outside your comfort zone because you realize that actually half the things you're worried about, it's like, is that it? Like I remember doing one of my first speaking gigs and thinking, I'm going to speak to a load of people here. And then, you're on the stage and it just felt really daunting. But at the same time, I was like, actually, it's got to be done. Whether I start, there's no point pissing my pants, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's going to happen. So essentially, I had to embrace it and be like, it's going to happen. So therefore, I'm going to take it in the approach where I'm going to make sure I'm fully prepared, feel quite good about it, and deliver it the best way that I can in my style. Whilst you've got those who are very theoretical or those who are, come across in a certain way. I'm like, well, this is actually me. And I love that saying, your vibe attracts your tribe. So that sticks in my mind now.
Oh, I
so
love
I'm
that.
like, yeah. So I'm just like, well, my vibe will attract the right tribe. So just be you, put yourself out there and do what you've got to do. So, but yeah, I was saying earlier also that, you know, the humans, we're going to forever have this issue of limiting beliefs and mindsets and things like that. It's just about how we approach it and just keep trying to move through it, which you've done. As you've said, you know, you're now looking at trying to push yourself into certain areas where you were like, oh, no, forget about it completely, which is brilliant. Brilliant. So looking back on your journey, would you do it all over again?
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes I think, oh, I wish I'd started the business a bit sooner, but actually, no, I started when I was 31, still quite young.
Yeah.
Yes. But you know, it's you have to go through certain like ways of understanding business before you build your own business as well. Like I always think it's odd that people can do like an MBA at the age of like 21 or 22 and you're like, but you have no business experience. And so it's difficult to kind of relate all the theory to actually like seeing how businesses work. And there's ways that businesses work on paper. And then the reality is like, yeah, they're a hot mess. Almost all businesses are a hot mess. Yeah. And once you kind of understand that and you figure out how to navigate a different hot mess each day, it gets a little easier. One of the things I wish I had done though is now I'm getting to the stage I'm like, maybe an MBA or a business degree would help me with the administrative side of running a business. That might have helped me scale and grow the company a bit quicker as well. I also had to make certain decisions about how quickly I scaled Wimbart because I had a baby when I was building the company. I just didn't travel as much as probably as what I would have done. No, I didn't open office in Nigeria. I wasn't willing to like leave my kids for like 6 weeks at a time to go on the road and do stuff. Like the most I've ever been away is like maybe 10 days. And even that felt like quite a long time. So I've had to make certain like quite intentional decisions. But then I'm like, well, I wouldn't have not had a baby. I'm kind of glad that I have my own business now. I really enjoy it. I push myself. It's tiring. I'm very tired, but I genuinely do enjoy it. I enjoy the process. And I think that, you know, I have this huge admiration of other business owners now, not just PR agencies, but anyone, you know, if I meet someone or chat to them and they say they run their own business, I'm like, oh, I wonder how they make money. I wonder how they monetize. I wonder how they do this. Like, I wonder if they ever sleep. So I think generally I'm pretty, I'm happy with how it's gone. Like there's always things that you could have done better, but I think that I found my tribe. As I said, and I think I found a niche. Do I think I'll do it forever? Probably not. You know, sometimes you've got to move on as well. But I think for now, I'm pretty happy with how things have been turning out.
Brilliant. Okay, brilliant. So coming on to my last, just 2 questions. So this one is about, I find it kind of funny, depending on the answers now. What was the best and worst advice you've been given in your career?
Now I'm trying to think of advice that I've been given that I've kind of been very receptive to.
Okay, yeah.
I think the best advice, I guess basically it was Jason, that my boss at Arocco, who kind of pushed me into setting up the business, right? That was, you know, that was the push factor. That was an advice. He was like, you just got to do it. You just got to do it. And he was like, if you don't do it, who else is going to do it? Like, it has to be you. It was very much, I guess that was like the best piece of advice, because then it opened the door and unlocked everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Worst piece of advice, I can't think of any.
Oh, well, that's good then. Like, you haven't been given
nothing really sticks.
I was going to say, whatever it was you didn't stick in your mind, so that's fine. That's good.
You know, here's one thing, but it's more kind of like, I don't think this person was serious. So early days with Wimbart, and I think a lot of PRs get this, when you're very small and you have a network of people, and people are always trying to get you to do stuff for free. Because they think your time doesn't have any value. It's like we go home and like go and live in our stately home.
I know.
Someone else pays for
exactly.
So someone who was part of my wider network was once trying to get me to do some free PR to help him. And I was trying to be very nice, because in those days I was quite nice and sweet and tried to like couch things in like nicer terms. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to, but you know, we haven't really got capacity at the moment, so I'm afraid we won't be able to help. And he was like, so this is your problem. You need to hire more people so you can do that. And I was like, how am I going to hire more people
if you're not paying me?
If you're not paying me, like, you can't tell me to hire more people so I can do free work.
Exactly.
Like, that is business 101, or the opposite of that. But I don't even think it is advice, because for me, it's not even serious.
No, it's definitely not serious.
Now I'll just be like, you know what, the fact that you're even speaking to me is cool, but like, I'm not doing anything for free.
No. That's such a cheeky
company.
It's such a cheeky thing to do. Well. It's just cheeky.
So it was
like, work for me. I'm at capacity. Well, bring someone else in. You're asking to work for free, sir. Okay, yeah, no. Yeah. That's hilarious.
So I think now, now I wouldn't even try and do anything nice saying we're at capacity. I'd be like, we can't work for free.
Yeah, you just say it straight now. Yeah, absolutely.
I would just say it straight now.
Yeah.
And I'm quite an abrupt, upfront kind of person. And weirdly enough, I tend not to code switch myself. Like, if you speak to me at work, I'm the same in terms of how I speak in like day-to-day life as well.
Day-to-day life, yeah.
So I'm very, I speak and engage in kind of quite a blunt way.
Yeah.
And I'm less likely. So probably a few years ago, I would have tried to be a bit nicer or code switch to be like more sweet, like, oh, I'd love to help. But now I'm like, nah.
Yeah, straight to the point. Wow. It's all this is seasoned. You're seasoned in the industry now, so you're like, right, enough. Like it. I like it. Right. It is a good word, isn't it? All right. So my last question to you is, do you have any rules that you've implemented along your career journey? Just to share with others in case they're thinking about, how did I get to where she is? Or,
Don't do too much work for free. I think after that, value your time. Yes. Value your time is really important. And I did at uni, I did work experience because I was building up a portfolio, especially, before you've had a job, you can't then expect people to just employ you into like quite, you need work experience. So I think that there's ways and means of doing that. Yeah. And if you're an art student and you're only doing 8 hours a week at uni, you do have time to do free work experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think as you grow, is that I think just kind of actually what you said about like when you found your tribe, like just surround yourself by like a tribe of people. And basically my rule is that I surround myself with people who I want to win and who want me to win as well.
Absolutely important. Absolutely love that. Oh, love that. Nice way to end as well. Surround yourself with people that you want to win and they want you to win as well. Beautiful. Well done and well said. Thank you, Jessica. It has been lovely having you on here. Now, if anyone wants to link in with you or to, connect with you, where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Wimbart Hope. I'm on LinkedIn, Jessica Hope Wimbart. Those are the main ones. You'll find me.
Brilliant. Great. Perfect. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your journey, your experiences with us. It has been lovely having you here. And I will be back soon with a new episode, speaking to more wonderful people from the world of PR and comms. So stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in.